Om Om Brahmanandam Paramasukhadam Kevalam Jnanamurtim Dvandvatitam Gagana Sadrisham Tattvamatsyaadilaksham Ekam Nityam Vimalamachalam Sarvadhi Sakshibhutam Bhavatitam Trigunarahitam Sadgurum Tam Namami. Om Sahanavavatu Sahanau Bhunaktu Sahaviryam Karavavahai Tejasvinavadhitamastu ma vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Harihi Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Harihi Om. Om Samasta Jana Kalyane Niratam Karunamayam Namami Chinmayam Devam Sadgurum Brahma Vidvaram Sadgurum Brahma Vidvaram. Everybody. The chapter started off with Sri Bhagwan Uvacha, Bhagwan encouraging Arjun, encouraging all us householders by telling Arjun and through him to us that it is okay if you have desires in your mind, as long as you give up the attachment to the results. Karma phala, attachment to the result of action. I'm willing to call you a sannyasi. An actual sannyasi, like I told you, is the one who has given up desires totally from his mind. That is the real sannyasi, but I'm willing to call you a sannyasi. And obviously, if you can give up the attachment to the result, means you have, or at least you're practicing to give up doership. So I'm willing to call you a yogi as well. So both sannyasi and yogi, I'm willing to call you. And sannyas doesn't necessarily mean niragni. Agni, I told you, one thing is the physical cooking. Agni also represents desire. So just because a person has given up cooking means work. Karma sannyas means physical karma sannyas. If it has been done, that doesn't mean that he's a sannyasi. He may have given up the work physically, but in his mind, if he's constantly having desires and agitation, then that doesn't make him a sannyasi. So it is, sannyas should be understood as an attitude of the mind more than the external garb. What happens is, when the mind withdraws, the external appearances also change automatically. If the mind is withdrawn and doesn't, so that, but that is not the point here. The one who has given up in his mind the attachment to results of action, Bhagwan will call him a sannyasi. Yogi he is, because he's practicing karma yoga, because of which he is able to give up that. So both yogi and sannyasi, Bhagwan says, I'm willing to call householders also. Okay, householders are generally those people who do have desires in their mind. Ultimately, there are children, so of course there'll be desire for the child to grow up and have an education, etc. So householders are generally fall under the category of those who have desires. But Arjun, being a householder, he is now encouraging. Then Bhagwan goes to say that the one who is the one who has not given up thoughts cannot be called as a yogi. And we saw thought here means sankalpa, samyak kalpana, the idea, the notion that there is happiness in the world. That notion also is a thought. That thought has to be given up. Not the thought of, working, doing karma outside, not that thought. But unless that thought is given up, a person cannot be a yogi. Yogi is one who is trying to reach the higher. Okay, yogi, yuj, coming from yuj dhatu, to join. The one who is trying to join to the higher is a yogi. Now, if that person has not given up this idea only that there is happiness in the world, how he can be trying for the higher? He can't be. Because then he's going to keep running outside for happiness. Everybody is doing things for happiness. So as long as he has that thought. So when he says give up, the one who has not given up thought cannot be called as a yogi. That is the thought. Not like you become thoughtless, and it's impossible. That is not physically possible. Also, we saw Madhusudan Saraswati ji's definition of thoughts. There are 5 types of thoughts. So there is pramana, viparyaya, vikalpa, nidra, and smriti. I told you smriti is memory, should be used as the rear view mirror, as we use the rear view mirror in the car to get glimpses of the past, which will help us in the present. So when we're acting in the present, there is a project, oh, I did this and this was not correctly done, or this was correctly done. That sort of memory you have not. Memory should not be used to bore other people. Sometimes, that's the main thing. It shouldn't be like you want telling things to others. That's not the purpose of memory. So smriti is required. Memory is definitely required in the transactional world to guide us in the present. So that guidance should be taken. Nidra, I told you, not excessive sleep. Nidra is absence of thought, but also I was thinking about it a little bit more. Nidra can also be there while we are waking, while we are in the waking state, because if our mind is somewhere else, that is like a thought. Sometimes thoughtlessly we do things. We don't even think and we just do. We are habituated to doing things and we do things, especially driving sometimes. So that should be avoided. Then there is vikalpa, which is shabda jnanam. Shabda jnanam, I told you, 2 kinds. If the words are coming from the scriptures through a scriptural guru, then that should not be given up. That should be listened to, but at a low gossip. Shabda, somebody is telling you something about somebody else. You should be skeptical about these things, and then definitely not pass it on. So those type of shabda pramana should not be taken. Even news or TV or reading newspaper, that also falls under shabda pramana, because you're hearing words, seeing words, or reading words. So that should be at from the highest standpoint, all that belongs to the not self. So it should be avoided. And then there is mithya jnanam, which is the world is real, there's happiness in the world. That thought should be definitely given. For a yogi, these are all conditions for the yogi. And pramana should be kept. Pramana is the true thought, which is what? There is only one true thought. I am Satchitananda is the only true thing in this world. Everything else falls under mithya. Mithya is that which is experienced but is false. False, when we say false, is that which can never be experienced, like the horns on a rabbit or the son of a barren woman. Those are the examples from the scripture. Sky flower, some doctor, you went through all the doctors, there was no cure for you, whatever that you had. Then you went to a doctor who said, yes, I have the cure, but you have to bring me a sky flower. Then that is false. That is false. That is not mithya. There's nothing like a sky flower. How will I bring the sky flower and how will I get cured? So understand the difference between false and mithya. Mithya is that which is experienced yet false. So mirage waters, snake on a rope, those are examples of mithya. Okay, so then he said, the one who is trying to climb the steed of his mind, and I told you he uses the word steed because Arjun was a military man, horses were being used. So it's like taming the horse. The first time when you try to climb on the horse doesn't just allow anybody to, ride it, climb it and ride it. So there is a certain amount of effort. So when you're trying to control the mind, karma is very, very essential. Actually, karma yoga is the only way of purifying the mind. If you want to control the mind, karma yoga. Karma here, Bhagavan has used karma karana muchyate. Karma should be taken here as karma yoga, not just karma with doership and enjoyship. So karma yoga, the principles of karma yoga were explained in chapter 3. For those of you who are just joining in, please, if you have time, go through the lectures of chapter 3, which are there on YouTube. So for one who is trying to control the mind, karma is prescribed. Karma yoga is prescribed. It is a must. There is no other way of purifying the mind. Okay. And then once the mind is controlled, then withdrawal. If the mind is truly controlled, external withdrawal will automatically come. Let me tell you, it is automatic. It is not like I control the mind, then I try to withdraw from. It doesn't happen like that. A controlled mind will make you withdraw from the external world. It will, because it is under your control. And then I gave you, as per Mahabharata, I told you the 7 requirements for the control of the mind is ability to see the oneness in everything, equipoise, then there is staying in tune with the reality, satyata, pure conduct, charitra is there, ability to remain free from agitations, ahimsa, non-injury even in thought to anybody else, and then straightforwardness. All these qualities, if we develop, they will lead to the peace of mind. Purity of mind is peace of mind. That is what it is. And then once the sankalpas, when a man is not attached to sense objects, senses are the ones that are pulling the mind outside. Okay, this in 4, he says, when a man is not attached to sense objects or to actions, having renounced all thoughts. Now, all thoughts again here means that sankalpa, that notion when it is given up. Now, why is that notion given up? Because the person wants something higher. I've always given you the example of the Olympic athletes whose mind is on the gold medal. If that athlete wants that gold medal, he or she is going to withdraw from all other pursuits, because now that is so. Even for a spiritual seeker, for a yogi who wants to join to the higher, knowing that the sense organs cannot take him there, that you have to be absolutely sure that senses are not the way to the higher, because the senses are extroverted. We are trying to go inside, introverted. The senses can never ever take you to that goal. Knowing that these senses will indulge in the outside world for something which is not even there in the outside world. So it's wasted effort. I am looking for happiness. I'm looking for that permanent happiness, which the senses are telling me to go outside and enjoy, and I will get, but I always find that I go, I enjoy, I feel happy, and then that happiness wanes, it reduces, and then I'm looking for something else. Isn't that our experience? No matter how happy, you get bored. You think this is going to make me happy, and you do that again and again. Finally, you're going to say, no, now I want something else, because the mind is like that, very fickle. So, oh, this thing made me happy. Now this doesn't make me happy anymore. Now you're going to go run after something else. Then you're going to go run after something else. Knowing this point, getting established in this idea that no, what I am looking for. That's why there is a big if. I've always said, if you want the higher, if you don't want the higher, you keep on doing this. And that's what you'll keep on doing for not only this life, for many lives to come. Many, many lives to come. This is the same cycle you're going to go through. So knowing that I want something permanent, which these impermanent senses and impermanent sense objects cannot give me. So knowing that, he renounces, and such a person then is said to be yoga arudha. Yoga arudha means one who has now controlled his mind completely, because this control of the mind is very essential for meditation. And that's why Bhagavan is preparing. This first 9 verses is just prep. It's a prep for what he's going to start with, chapter 10. Okay, so we saw that. And then we were on the 5th one. This is an important verse. We need to think about it a little bit more. So we shall do the thinking today. Last week, I gave you an idea of the verse. Let a man lift himself by his own self alone. So there are 4 statements in this verse. Lift yourself by yourself. Do not fall. Mind is your friend, and mind itself is your enemy. Now, lift yourself by yourself. We need to think a bit deeply. So yourself by yourself means what? Means there are 2 selves. No? There is one self which is falling, or which is under, below. And then there's got to be some other self which is higher. And then by that higher self, you need to uplift or lift the lower self. Now, one example I gave you, very common, intellect and mind. But let's see in the human body, we all have 5 personalities. Okay. So the first personality is the grossest, which is the physical level, which technically is called as Annamaya Kosha. So those of you who are new, please go back into Tattva Bodh. There's a little book, and that will explain all this. So there is this physical body, which is the Annamaya Kosha. And inside is the Pranamaya Kosha, the pranas. inner than that is the manomaya kosha, which is the mind. So there is a physical level, then there is a pranic level, a mental level, an intellectual level, which is even more inside. And I'll tell you what I mean by inside. And then above the intellect, above the intellectual level is the spiritual personality. So there is a spiritual personality, which is the subtlest, intellectual, mental, pranic. Let's bring pranas in there as well, because the example that I'm going to give you involves pranas, and then the body, the physical level. Now, the two reasons why we call something subtler than something else. Gross and subtle. Gross is something that I can see and you can see as well. So this body of mine, I can myself see and you can see it too. So it is very, very gross. Everybody can see the body. Now, the pranas are a little bit subtler than that, because pranas I can feel, like my breath I can feel, or I can sometimes hear my stomach growl. That is all pranas. But it is subtler than the body. It is not physically seen by all the senses. Subtle is something which is, gross is something which is seen by all the senses. And as these, like pranas, you can't really physically see with the eyes. Okay, you cannot touch the pranas. So that's why they become subtler. The what should I say? The less the senses can experience, like number of senses, if all 5 senses can experience, it is the grossest. If 4 senses only can experience, it becomes a little subtle. If only 3 can do it, more subtle. If only 2 can do it, more subtle. If one sense organ can experience, it becomes subtlest. That is one definition of subtle. So then there is the pranas, and then the mind, which is subtler than the pranas, because mind you cannot even feel with your fingers or anything. And mind, only I can see my mind, you cannot see my mind. I know that for some of you, this is going to be a repetition, but there are new people here. So I need to go into a bit more depth. Otherwise, I wouldn't have. So the mind is something which only I can see. My mind I can see. Thank God I cannot see anybody else's mind, because then I'd know how much they hate me. but that's why mind is subtle. Intellect is even subtler than the mind, because the mind can go to places, can imagine places which it has been before. But the intellect is the one that can go to places which have never been treaded before. Like the first time man landed on the moon, that idea came through the intellect. It cannot, because nobody had landed on the moon before that. Now, mind knows. People have gone to the moon. Now it's Mars and it's other planets. Okay, so that's how the intellect is. Now, the spiritual level in our chart, which is Om, is the subtlest. Okay, now the other thing about subtle is more pervasive than the gross. That's another definition, another parameter. And the most important parameter, which we'll be using here, is the control. The subtle always controls the gross. That part is to be understood. For this verse, this is the most important thing. Now let's see. Let's take a very, very mundane, common example. My body is fine at the physical level. Gross body is absolutely fine, no problem. But there is some problem with my pranas. Ayurveda says that there is the samana vayu which controls the digestive system. The pranas are the controllers of the physiological functions in the body. So when in common parlance, when they say, oh, I've got indigestion, I can't eat, Ayurveda says something is wrong with at the pranic level. Okay, now see. Now my body is fine. Body looks fine. I can give you 2 examples. I had a friend who had, or in medical science, suppose the nervous system is affected. Okay, so this friend of mine tumbled down the steps one day, and then she was in rehab. I was in India, and when I came back, she was in Holy Family in rehab. And when I went to see her, I said, "What's wrong with you?" She was just sitting in a chair, and the body was absolutely normal. And I said, like, why are you in rehab? And then she raised her hand and she said, Jaya, I cannot raise my hand. Like, she couldn't go up like this. She cannot. To this day, she cannot eat with her right hand. So even though that arm is absolutely looking normal, if she sits, there's nothing wrong. Her pranas are controlling the movement of the hand. So the subtle is controlling the gross. And in case of indigestion, which is we say is the samanavayu, the pranic level. If I have indigestion, then even though there is food and my body looks normal, I can't eat. Or at least the intellect says, you know what, if you're going to eat this, you're going to suffer later. Don't eat. This is how pranas are controlling the body. Now let's see. Body is absolutely fine. No indigestion. Pranas are absolutely fine working. But the mind hears some very great tragic news. Okay. Someone very, very close has now passed away. And now, even though the pranas are normal, even though the body is normal, even though there is food on the table, will the mind, the body doesn't even feel hungry anymore because the mind is in so much shock. So the mind is now controlling the pranas and the body. So then the mind becomes the controller. Okay. So then this news has come. This person has not eaten dinner. Next day morning, the person gets up, is feeling absolutely weak. Normally, you haven't had any food. So is weak, feeling weak. But the intellect is now telling the mind, look, you need to go out and get your ticket because you need to now go to India or you need to go somewhere. You need your energy. You need to drive somewhere to get your things in order so you can go, whatever it is. And for that, you need the food. Your body needs the strength. So even though the mind is absolutely in sorrow, the intellect is now controlling the mind and saying, you need to eat. It doesn't matter. You need to eat. And then the person will eat. So this is how the intellect is controlling the mind. Mind is controlling the pranas. Pranas are controlling the body. Okay. Now, another scenario. Everything is fine. Food is there. Body is fine. Pranas are fine. Mind is very happy. Intellect, no problem. Intellect has no problem because no diabetes, no blood pressure. You can eat anything, but it is Ekadashi. It is a vrata that I have taken. It is a sankalpa that I have taken that on Monday, I will not eat such and such thing. Or on Saturday, I will not eat. I will fast. Now what happens is the spiritual personality comes in and says, yes, everything is fine, but today is Ekadashi. You cannot touch that food. So this is how the spiritual personality will control all because it is the subtlest. Whatever is subtle is controlling the gross. So when it says here, lift yourself by yourself. So what it is whatever is higher, you should put that in control. So you've got indigestion, do not eat that food. So what you've done is the pranas, which are the higher self, here, there's a lower self and higher self. In these two, the pranas is the higher self. So you allow the pranas to control the body. Then the mind is even higher than the pranas. And when I use the word higher, please understand it is subtle. So mind is subtler. So you then let the mind control the pranas. And then if the mind is okay, then the intellect you have to come under the control of the intellect. When the intellect says, hey, you've got diabetes, your A1C was not normal. Do not eat that 5th gulab jam. Because the mind wants to eat. It's my favorite dish, ras malai. No, intellect says no. So you bring the mind under the control of the intellect. Lift yourself by you're falling. That is you're falling. You're falling when you're going for the next sweet, which you're not supposed to eat, or you're not supposed to do something. The body is, this is another thing. I have people who are, when they stand, their legs are shaking, and then they come and ask me, what can I do? What am I going to say? Can't. You have to only do things that your body can do, that your body will allow you to do. Don't try to do something beyond the capacity of the body. And so the intellect must control. Now, when we come to Vedanta, who should be the controller? The spiritual personality has to be the controller for Vedanta. This is all in the transactional world. This is all food, this, that, everything. Walking, if it's happened to me, I was walking 15,000 steps. Now my doctor is telling me reduce it to 5. So higher self, doctor becomes the higher self for my physical body. He is greater than me. If he's telling me that, then I must follow that. This is lift yourself by yourself, because ultimately doctor can tell me, but what I do, or if I, it's up to me, no? It's up to me to lift myself by listening to the doctor, because he's telling me this is not good for you, do not do it. So its ultimate decision is mine. Doctor can only guide. Doctor can only tell. He can only write the prescription. To take that medication or not is up to me. So ultimately, that's why it is lift yourself by yourself. There is nobody else. They can tell you, they can guide you, but ultimate decision will always be our own. And when we make the spiritual personality my goal, when we make it our goal, that this is what I want, then that spiritual personality has to guide all your action. Now, as far as eating, all these mundane things are there, it is not a thing. But where will the spiritual, if that ego is coming up, saying, I am doing, and I will enjoy, and I want this, and this is that sort of thing. When it comes up, the spiritual personality has to take over. You have to allow it to take over, saying, I want to reach that. That is why I will not do this. That is why I will not react in this way. Reaction versus response. I told you, we get angry. We want, no. Now I'm getting affected by the mind, by the thoughts. I don't want. I am the Sakshi, higher level. I am the witness to all this. Knowing that I want to reach the higher, and I cannot reach the higher if I keep on indulging in this world, if I keep on falling for every little thing, if I keep on reacting to every situation, every person, every object that is coming my way, I cannot reach. With that thought, you need to control. Lift yourself by yourself. That is what this is. It's a very important verse. Okay, so at all levels, this verse will help us. Even in the transactional world, when we are dealing with people, when we are dealing with objects, when we are dealing with situations. And if therefore, as spiritual seekers, the spiritual personality has to rule. Okay, so do not fall. We fall. See, we are on the path. Okay, I'm not saying that we can never fall. No, if we were never falling, then we would be realized only. So we fall. Okay. Bhagwan is saying, do not fall. How? By using. Now, control. Let's see the word control. See, when we use the word control, quote unquote, control implies force. Control implies force, not control. You know, you're controlling somebody. You're like, not like that. Anything that you push down or control, if that control is removed, it'll come up twice. So control, one way of control is choice. Choice. So give your mind a choice, because mind is the one that is playing havoc. Intellect never plays any havoc. Mind is the one. Body is inert. So if the mind doesn't say don't go there or don't eat, that body is not going to do. Body will not never do anything that the mind is telling it not to do. But my body doesn't have a, a choice of its own. Body doesn't have any volition. Body is not going to, if the mind says no, don't eat, the body will not eat. Don't think that mind is saying don't eat, but the hand will just go there and put things in your mouth or go do something. So body is not important that way. It is required, but the control is with the mind, and the mind will play havoc. So when that mind is trying to play havoc, give it a choice. That's why we say tame the mind. That is why in Amrita Bandhu Upanishad says the mind is the cause for bondage and the mind itself is the cause for liberation. So when the mind is your friend, and that's why he says, Bhagwan is saying, mind is your friend. Remember that. Make it your friend. If you make it your friend, it will help you go to the higher. Who is a friend? Friend is one who will, when you're doing the right thing, will encourage you. When you're doing the wrong thing, will tell you, no, this is not correct. A true friend will always tell you, no, this is not correct. Do not do it. This is not right. That is a true friend. Enemy is one who doesn't have your good in his heart. So if you're doing something good, that enemy is going to feel jealous. Why are you doing this? I told you, many people who tell me, why are you doing this thing? They told me, why do you want to go there for 2 years and do the course? Why do you want to work so much for the mission? I have to make my own judgment. Okay. I have choice. So that is the enemy. So that's why mind, when it is your friend, when you are trying to go against your vasanas, the mind will help you. The mind will help you. It's like the wind when it is on your, if you're walking or cycling, when the wind is on the back, the wind will help you go forward. That is the position of the mind when it's your friend. Now, there's another question. That's why the idea is make it when it is your friend, it'll help you go to the higher. And when it's your enemy, it'll pull you back. So that is the reason to make it your friend. Okay, then the next question is, how do you make a friend? How do you make a friend? So the way you make a friend is by knowing that person. Now, suppose we take a person, suddenly you see somebody and then suddenly you say, oh, this is my friend. We don't say suddenly. We interact with that person for a while. Then we come to know how this person is. The best way to know is to travel with the person. I learned my lesson. So when you travel with them, then one of my students was there in mission member. I know her. So she was dating this guy, and she said to me, she said, my dad has said, unless you two travel together, I can never give you permission to get married. And that time I didn't understand it. I really didn't understand. This was quite a few years back. And she said, that's why, my boyfriend and I, now we are going to go travel, and then we'll see, then my father will give me permission. So I didn't understand it, but I thought, what can I say? It's not my place to say. I said, okay. But I realized many years later that yes, you need to travel with the person to really know whether that person is compatible with you. So the idea is about the friend, come back to our topic, is if you want to make somebody your friend, you need to know that person. Does this person's goals align? The best thing is you need to know whether their goals align with your goals. Say your goal is Vedanta, if that person is into movies and extroverted and parties and this and that, then really, can you be friends? You can be friends in the sense you can be acquaintances and friendly. That's why in chapter 12, we have seen Bhagavan says, be friendly to all. So that doesn't mean that you should hate that person and become an enemy of that person. That is not the idea, because then you're only yourself falling. So the idea is you be friendly, but who do you make a friend? So the point is, to make a friend, you have to know that person. So if you want to make the mind your friend, you first need to know your own mind. That is the idea. That is the point. Know your mind, understand your mind. Our problem, is we never watch our mind. Why? Because we are watching everybody else outside. What is that person doing? Why did that person say something? Why did this one do this way? Why did that one do? Because we are so extroverted, we don't even know how our mind is, how it is functioning. If you want to sit quiet, watch your mind, see what kind of thoughts are going through. Even when you're interacting with somebody else, be aware of what kind of thoughts you're talking to. Oh, that person not one good. You don't say that, right? What, this is close to be one here. So see how the mind is chattering. So observe your mind, understand it, and then make it your friend. Tame it. That's why another word that is used is tame your mind. Tame it so that it will listen. And a friend is one who will listen to you. Generally, or somebody, if you consider somebody your friend, then when they tell you something, you tend to listen. You say, oh no, she said it, I'm sure that's true. That way. Now, the next point to think about this is, okay, one more thing is, I myself have to recognize the need to lift myself. Okay, that need I have to recognize. It's like, addictions. Unless I even admit that I'm addicted, why will I go try to get help? People, they're addicted and they say, no, I'm not ready. I can give up smoking anytime. I've given it up 10 times before. So I can give up, but I'm smoking right now. I've given it up 10. So unless that need is right. So that's number one point. Now, second, another point to think about this verse is Bhagwan says, lift yourself by yourself. Is it possible? Is it possible to do this? So the answer is both yes and no. Is it possible? Okay. The reason that we say yes, it is possible is because if it was not possible at all, then what is the point in Bhagwan telling us to do something which he knows himself it is impossible? Like I said, I gave you the sky flower example. If somebody is telling me to bring a sky flower to cure my disease, but that sky flower is not even available, then what is the point of telling bring the sky flower? So yes, it is. But then if it is possible to do, and if Bhagwan has said it, why is not everybody doing it? Are everybody doing it in the world? How many people do we see on this path? So that's why it is no also. Because if it was, it is doable. And if it is always doable, then all people should do it. But no, some people don't. Then the next question is, should I do it? Should I do it? Yes, if you want to reach the higher, you should. So again, there is yes and no. If you don't want, that's why there's a big if. I've always said this in all my classes. There's a big if. Do you want whatever I say, or whatever the teachers are saying, they say? What do you want? See, unless it is what I want, I will never do it. So do you want to do it? You will want to do it if the big if you want that. And like I said, forget reaching the higher. Do you want peace of mind? That is what I'm bringing it down to now. Your mind will be at peace. Do you want your mind to be at peace? Then you should do it. Okay. So instruction is given. It is possible because Bhagwan can never tell us something which is totally impossible. But not everybody is doing it. Should I be doing it? Yeah, up to you. Do you want peace? You do it. You don't want peace. You don't want the higher. Don't do it. But Bhagwan always gives the choice. Some of you have listened to 18, chapter 18, where ultimately Arjun says, I will do whatever you say. Bhagwan says, no, you do if you want to do, not because I'm telling you to do. So that's why ultimate decision is always ours. What do I want from this? Okay. So this is a very, very important verse. Any questions? Yes, Sweda.
So I have a question about like taming the mind. Like if we sit down and think about our mind and the thoughts that are coming in and we jot it down and we say, oh, okay, this is not the right thought. I don't want this. Do you have any like suggestion inputs how to tame it and to, like, okay, you realize that this is not the right thought, but how do you control that?
Yeah. So what it is there is Hatha Yoga. There's one Hatha Yoga, Chitta Vritti Nirodha Yoga. So you can do meditation techniques, yoga techniques. In Vedanta, we say through knowledge. Educate the mind. Educate the mind that if I bear this thought, if I go ahead with this, I am falling. On my path to the higher, I will fall. Educate the mind through your intellect and then bring it under control. It always has to be, if I do this, I'm going to fall. The common example I give you is a white lie. You know white lies, right? Everybody knows what white lies is. White lies is something which has got absolutely no effect on anybody that is listening. Like if I say I have $10 million in the bank, nothing of you guys is becoming less more anything. Okay, I can just say that. Why I don't say it, if I say it is, after all, it is a lie. And if I speak a lie, I fall from my spiritual path. Vedanta, I've told you, for new people, it is self-analysis. It is all about your own self. It is not about anybody else. I may make a few people jealous. Few people say only 10 million. Arey, mere paas to 10 trillion hai. So then what? So there is no point. So why tell white lies? That is why don't do things which you think are going to make you fall. Forget the other people. Don't have that log kya kahenge syndrome. That's a bad one, LKK. What will people think? I better spend so much money on my daughter's reception, because what will people think? But I am in debt. What is the point? What is the point? No point. So knowing that I don't want to fall. Whatever other people think, let them think. I'm not going to fall. Okay? All right? All right. Now, let's go to the next one. 5. Where did my 6 go? Bandhuratmanam Bandhuratmanastasya yenatmaivatmana jitah anatmanastu shatrutve vartetatvayma shatruvata. The self is the friend of the self for him who has conquered himself by the self. Again, the self, and note the capital S and the small s. But to the unconquered self, this self stands in the position of an enemy, like the external foe. So Bhagavan said in the earlier verse, make mind your friend. Why? He's telling in here this verse. Why should I make my mind my friend? Because he says the self is the friend of the self for whom has conquered himself by the self. So in the earlier verse, who has conquered himself by the self, the capital self, means when you have put all your other personality levels under the control of the spiritual personality, when your mind is completely under control, when your mind is not getting affected by whatever is seen, situations, objects, and persons outside, when because the senses are extroverted, always, they will always go out. They will always see, hear, touch, taste things outside. When whatever in these 5 types of experiences, whatever is happening, when it doesn't have any effect on your mind, then that mind is your friend. What does it mean? I see a movie, then the mind, oh, now I want to go see all these movies only. I hear some music. No, my mind constantly wants to just listen to that. So what is happening is, oh, even Swamiji gave that example, but one good one is, let not the BMI run away with the BMW. What does that mean? There is a BMW that is going. Now my eyes see it. Now, what a nice car. My husband never bought me that. Loser, never earned enough money. Mind is gone. Finish. It is getting affected by what it is seeing. When this happens, then the mind is, that's it. In 1 second, the mind is gone. It is not under your control. It has run away like a monkey, and that's it. There was yesterday, I parked somewhere, and then this little dog, he ran from the master. That master, that man was so because right straight into the road it ran. The little one. I thought if the car comes, that's it, the end of that dog. And now that is like our mind. That's what the mind does. Boom, karke, it just go somewhere, right? So then it is your enemy because it is going outward. The mind doesn't run inside. The mind has to be brought inside. Called, come. Run outside, it is running. Total speed. So the mind which does not see anything in the transactional world is happening with the participation of the senses alone, right? That's why we call them the organs of perception. They are the senses are the ones that are perceiving the outside world. It is not our organs of action. Organs of action, the senses perceive, then they tell the mind that this is what I perceive and this is what I want. And then the mind will order the legs to go there or the hands to go pluck the flower or whatever. This is how it's working. So this participation of the senses is inevitable. Please remember, unless you close your eyes, your nose, your mouth, and go in the world, which is not possible. So the participation of the senses in the external world is inevitable. It cannot be helped. All right. But to allow those senses to affect the mind or not is in our control. That part we can control. Like eyes are going to see. Whatever eyes are open, they will see color and form. Okay. They see a flower. Suddenly the eyes, beautiful flower, right? Now the mind has to decide, should I go pluck that flower? It says there, please do not touch the plants in the garden or whatever, right? So the mind has to decide. So that choice I have. Yes, my eyes love the flower. It's beautiful. It'll look very nice in my altar, everything, blah, blah. But the mind decides. So when the mind is not allowed to go with the senses, no control, senses cannot be controlled in the sense, mind can control the senses, but if the eyes are open, they will see. If the ears are open, they will hear. They have no choice. There's no choice. You cannot say that my eyes are open, but you know what, I choose not to see the color. You will see the color and form. So that choice is not there with the senses, but the mind will have a choice, does have a choice. And when that choice is exercised, when it is used to withdraw the mind in spite of the participation of the senses, then that is a controlled mind. That is what yoga rudra is. So, and why should I control the mind? That's the same thing like Sweta asked. Why should I not have this negative thought? Because I am falling in my journey to the higher. Then I'm one step back. You know, it's like when you climb the last part of Kilimanjaro. I have not climbed. My son was telling me, Mom, you go 10 steps, you come back 5. That's how it is. The last 1/4, which quite a few people can't do. So that is how this path is. This journey also is like that. You go 10, you fall 5. Then you run, you fall. So that I don't want to fall. When that thought is there, when that thought, we are established in that thought, that this is my goal, I do not want to go astray from the goal, then you will not allow the senses to rule your mind. You will not allow the senses. This is why we have this horses represent the senses and the reins represent the mind, and Bhagwan is the intellect. The charioteer is the intellect. This is from Kathopanishad, this has been taken, right? So the horses are running wild. They will go. Imagine if the 4 horses go in 4 different directions, our senses, what will happen to the chariot? What will happen? Gone. So that's why the mind has to be in the hands of the intellect. Means the intellect has to be controlling the mind, and it is a subtler personality. It will. Okay. And the control is to be exercised, knowing that the senses cannot take me. No matter what, the senses can never take you to the higher self. They can't. The mind can, but not that. And when will the mind take? When it is your friend, it'll allow you to transcend itself. The mind itself will realize that I am that pure self. Okay. For now, just understand, if the mind is your friend, it will help you. That's why Amrita Bindu Upanishad says the mind is the cause for liberation. Mind can, but not the senses. Never, ever, and never trust the senses. We see the blue sky. Is the sky blue? So senses can never tell you the truth. All right. Perception. So that is what this is. Now, 7, 8, and 9 are 3 verses. Very important. They are, any questions so far? All clear? Okay. 7, 8, and 9 are an elaboration of the term Samatvam Yoga Uchyate. These 3 words were uttered by Bhagavan Shri Krishna in chapter 2, where he said that yoga is what? Joining to the higher is nothing but samatvam, equanimity, equipoise. Okay. And these 3 verses are the culmination of another verse in chapter 2, 47, which is my favorite verse. Sukha dukhe same krutva, labha labho jaya jayao. There Bhagwan gave an instruction to Arjun. In chapter 2, he gave the instruction. Arjun, start making sukha and dukkha sama. Be poised towards sukha and dukkha, which is at the level of the mind. Jaya, labha, alabha, gain and loss, which is at the level of the body. And jaya, Ajaya means Jaya Parajaya, victory and defeat, which is at the level of the intellect. These pairs of opposites will be affecting the level of the body, the level of the mind, and the intellect. You remain equipoised. That was the instruction that was given. These 3 verses are the fulfillment of those instructions and an elaboration of Samatvam Yoga Uchate. So in 7, there is, Bhagwan is now telling the one who has become yoga rudha. Okay, so the one who has climbed the steed of his mind, the one who has controlled his mind completely, will be equipoised towards thoughts, 7, and then 8 objects, and 9 people. Because these are the 3 things that are always affecting us. Like Swera said, this thought comes and now I'm bothered. Oh, why did I think of this bad thought, passionate thought, lusty thought? Why did I think? So the one who, what does it mean by control of the mind? Because the mind is a flow of thought. Tattva Bodh, very essential to be read by those who are new. Please read Tattva Bodh. The definition of mind that is given by Gurudev is thought is a flow of mind. Opposite. Mind is a flow of thought. Just as water, the river is a flow of water, the mind is a flow of thought. That is a definition of mind. You cannot remain without thought unless you're in a deep sleep or coma. Only that is a thoughtless. That is different. But in the waking state, thoughts will be there. They will. If you can remain equipoised to those, if you can remain equipoised to the objects, and if you can remain equipoised to the people, because these are the things that we're coming across constantly, that person, Bhagwan says, is a yoga rudha. This is how these 3 verses are going to go. I'm not going to start them today. We will see them next time, which would be the 11th of June. And what I would like to actually do is after 9, means after 10 starts the instructions on meditation. That is from 10 onwards is this chapter, means the Dhyana Yoga starts at 10. So I want to complete these 3 verses, but I do not want to start because then there only 18th remains and there's no way that I can, because it'll remain halfway and then there'll be a break. So what I'm going to do is next Sunday, we will study these 3 verses, 7, 8, and 9. And then this class, we will stop till September. So I think September 11th would be the month, 8, 9, 10. 10 September is the Sunday, which is after Labor Day weekend. And that's when we'll start. So that what will happen is, see, this chapter is like that. The first 9 verses are the prep and then the meditation instructions. So we have done the prep, we'll do the prep, we'll revise it again, no worries, and then we'll do. So if that's okay with everybody, that is how I would like to proceed. Are there any questions? Yes, Neil.
Just one question. Sorry, I was maybe confused a little bit. You said yogi in the beginning does not have sankalpa disturbances.
Yogi is one. Yes, yogi is one. Bhagwan's in the 2nd verse, he says, one who has not renounced this thought, sankalpa, that there is happiness in the world cannot be a yogi, he says. Why? Suppose if I have the thought in my mind very firmly, I'm firmly established in the thought that my happiness is outside. Outside means what? Either I'll be happy only if this person is with me, or only I have this object, or only I have sunshine, then I'm happy. If it rains, I'm not happy. When I'm established in these type of thoughts, how I can be a karma yogi? Because what I'm going to do is, for that happiness, I'm going to keep running after that. Those things. That's why.
Okay, so we are yogi,
you should try to give up that karma yogi. You become by following the 5 requirements that I've given you in chapter 3, right? Every work to be done with sense of duty, sense of equanimity, sense of prasada buddhi, samatvam, and then asanga, detached. Those principles at the gross level should be followed. Then you will reach this stage.
Okay.
It is not immediately. These things don't happen immediately. It requires a lot of practice. and
Limited
studies.
by yourself.
Studies, yeah, and studies. That's why weekly classes are required. They're required. People think, I've heard a lot and now I need a break. I don't think it's such a good idea. I don't think.
Yes.
We all need it. I need it too. It helps me too, because then I study as well, right? And it helps more when you teach, because when you are falling, when I'm not you, when I'm falling, then my mind definitely tells me, but this is not what you said in class. So why are you doing it? And that becomes a great deterrent, which is a very good thing for me. That's how I control. That's how I do when I want to react on a WhatsApp message. And it's like, no, this is reaction. Don't react. Respond. Respond is allowed. Response is allowed, but reaction should not be done, because reaction comes from the ego. Response comes from the higher level, always. And response is something that you have thought and done. Reaction is something you have not thought and you've done, and later on you're going to regret it. Oops, I shouldn't have done it. That's the difference. Okay.
Thank you so much.
Right.
I remember this, there is a one point that you reminded when Pujya Gurudev said, life itself is a series of experience.
Yes.
When you said about this, the mind is a series of thoughts, and at a total level, the life itself is a series of experiences.
Correct. Correct. And that's why when the experiences are good, we say, I've had a good life. When the experiences are more bad, then we say, my life has not been that good. It's Gurudev has given the example of the wall, the brick wall. Just as the wall is made of brick. So when all the bricks are strong and this, then the wall is strong. So that way, every brick represents our one experience. This is the experience that I've had. This is the experience that I've had. And then we say it's a good life or not. Okay. All right. So we'll meet next Sunday, and we will conclude this year's session that time on next Sunday. And I will see some of you tomorrow, Monday. Om Swasti Prajabhya Paripalayantam Nyayena Margena Mahim Mahishaha Gobrahmanebhya Shubhamastu Nityam Loka Samasta Sukhino Bhavantu Kale Varshatu Parjanyaha Prithvi Sasya Shalini Desho Yam Shobharahita Brahmana Santu Nirbhayaha Om Sarvesham Swasti Bhavatu Sarvesham Shantir Bhavatu Sarvesham Purnam Bhavatu Sarvesham Mangalam Bhavatu Sarve Bhavantu Sukhinaha Sarve Santu Niramayaha Sarve Bhadrani Pashyantu Ma Kashit Dukha Bhag Bhave Toma Satoma Sadgamaya Tamasoma Jyotirgamaya Mrityorma Amritam Gamaya Om Purnamadav Purnamidam Purna Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Avashishyate Om Shanti 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 Harihi Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha Harihi Om.